If you have ever enjoyed big-budget science fiction, if you have ever enjoyed grappling with the questions posed by good sci-fi, heaven help you, if you have ever enjoyed this channel, then you owe something to Forbidden Planet. Released in 1956, this influential epic dared to take the high road when the low road was all that seemed open to it. Now, in an age of pervasive brainrot and AI slop, this landmark classic reminds us that we can, indeed must, aim higher. Today, we'll journey outward to the furthest reaches of space, and inward to the deepest corners of the subconscious, to find out why Forbidden Planet matters. I'm Tyler Martin, and this is Monsters from the Id. It was the spring of 1954, and Hollywood was churning out science fiction yarns left and right. This sci-fi boom produced many wonderful, and wonderfully endearing, classics, yet apart from a handful of polished epics, the genre was mostly the territory of small-scale productions, which, while popular, were generally considered crude. Painter and special effects artist Irving Bloch was approached by writer Alan Adler with a suggestion that they work together to create something that was a cut above the ordinary. What resulted was a story that incorporated key themes and characters from Shakespeare's The Tempest into a futuristic sci-fi setting. At first, the pair thought to strike a deal with the low-budget specialists at Allied Artists, but their agent, realizing the potential of the idea, urged them to think bigger. So instead, the pair took their pitch to MGM. The initial meeting with producer Nicholas Nayfack went well, and soon, that historic studio's first science fiction movie was given the green light. Bloch and Adler's treatment was fleshed out into a screenplay by Cyril Hume. Sensing the possibilities offered by the outline, Hume made some inspired changes at this stage, adding a hefty dose of Freudian psychology, among other adjustments. Indicative of the studio's muted expectations, the project was assigned to journeyman director Fred Wilcox. Like others, Wilcox saw great potential in the material, and took care to impress upon the cast and crew that, whatever the reputation of science fiction may have been, this picture was serious business. Art director Arthur Lonergan and special effects head A. Arnold Gillespie were excited by this unique opportunity to let their respective departments shine, and devised elaborate sets and gimmicks which defied the initially modest budget. Forging ahead on their own initiative, the filmmakers effectively forced the studio to supply more funds, and what had been planned as a somewhat limited effort began to approach epic proportions. Everyone involved was set on making something truly worthwhile out of the strange, ambitious idea that was Forbidden Planet. Set in the 23rd century, the movie opens with the United Planet starship C-57D en route to the remote planet Altair 4 to determine the fate of a previous expedition. Upon landing, Captain J.J. Adams and his crew meet the brilliant but cagey Dr. Morbius and his daughter Altera, who was born on this world and has never known any other human except her father. They are served by a personable automaton named Robbie, an all-in-one butler, security guard, and walking factory. Morbius explains that they live here alone, as the expedition ship, the Bellerophon, and nearly all of the crew were wiped out by an unknown planetary force. The Doctor reveals his study into the secrets of the Krell, a highly advanced civilization which once inhabited the planet but mysteriously perished in a single night 200,000 years ago. Adams and Lieutenant Ostro are given a tour of the Krell's massive subterranean complex, a still operational, self-maintaining facility which generates almost limitless power. Meanwhile, an invisible attacker makes increasingly deadly raids against the ship and its crew. Its fearsome form is at last revealed as it meets with a force field barrier and blaster fire, to which it is apparently immune. Adams and company suspect that Morbius knows more than he lets on, but the old recluse protests his innocence. The drama and tension continue to build until the terrible truth is revealed. The ultimate achievement of the Krell was a machine whose purpose was to create matter through the power of thought alone. But they forgot one thing.
Monsters, John. Monsters from the Id.
Powered by the underground furnace, their most primitive urges took form and wiped them out. Having tapped into this technology, Morbius has unwittingly created an unstoppable, insatiably destructive beast that embodies his own subconscious desire for solitude and control. It was this frightful creature that exterminated the Bellerophon party and now constitutes a clear and present threat. With the monster from the Id bearing down, all concerned are faced with some serious conundrums. How can the monster be stopped? How can this catastrophic tide of events be reversed? How can mankind, or any sentient race for that matter, ever hope to learn the secrets of the Krell without meeting the same tragic fate? The answers come fast and furious, wormwoods all, to remind us that we are, after all, not God. High-minded, yet highly entertaining, Forbidden Planet would eventually go down in history as a benchmark of sci-fi cinema, but upon release it was not a major success. While netting moderate gains and generally good reviews, it did not immediately change the face of the genre. Only with the passage of time has history come to realize its significance. As mentioned, the filmmakers were determined to carry this movie to its full potential, and if that meant breaking the budget, then so be it. Forbidden Planet was reportedly the first SF film that cost over $1 million to make, and not a cent of it went to waste. The futuristic spaceship, the alien scenery of Altair 4, the staggering scale of the Krell complex and more stand out as stunning achievements for the time. Just as striking is the otherworldly electronic soundtrack by Lewis and B.B. Barron. Created with scratch-made equipment, it was like nothing that had ever come before, and helped set the film even further apart from its contemporaries. The cast all put in strong performances, but just about everybody's favorite character is Robbie the Robot. Robbie's charming personality and the inspired, functionally minded design perfected by Robert Kinoshita helped turn the character into a pop culture staple. In creating his mechanical servant, Morbius takes a cue from Isaac Asimov, incorporating that author's 3 laws of robotics into his programming. Thus, unable to allow a human being to come to harm, he faces a dilemma when commanded to kill the oncoming monster, knowing it to be an alter ego of Morbius himself. And what of this monster, this vicious killer that issues from the subconscious? Of all the interesting ideas at work in Forbidden Planet, it is this one that stands out most vividly. It's a notion rooted in psychoanalytic theory. According to the Freudian model, the most basic part of the human personality is the id, driven by instinctual needs and urges. It hinges on pleasure and is entirely selfish. The id seeks at once to preserve itself and eliminate any perceived threat to survival or the gratification of desire. The more evolved parts of the mind, the ego and superego, work to counterbalance these tendencies with notions of logic and moral order.
We're all part monsters in our subconscious. So we have laws and religion. Let me go!
But in the case of Morbius and the Krell, the id is given access to virtually unlimited power, with disastrous consequences. Curiosity leads Dr. Morbius to tinker with technology that greatly exceeds his own comprehension. And just like the mighty Krell before him, he unwittingly gives physical form to primal, irrational desires he did not even know he had. The result is unthinkable destruction and chaos. As advanced as they were, even the Krell had such demons lurking within, and this proved to be their downfall. It logically follows that a less developed human brain would stand no chance. All along, the philologist seems to be on the verge of grasping the monster's origin, but his conscious mind is unable to see the horrible truth until Adam spells it out for him. With each new complication, each new threat to Morbius's instinctual need for dominance, the monster becomes more powerful, more ruthless, more determined. Only the death of Morbius himself can stop it. These concepts and more are depicted beautifully in the movie, and like any great story with something to say, its relevance doesn't stop when the movie ends. 70 years after Forbidden Planet showed audiences the dangers of recklessly feeding their baser instincts, we find ourselves in an environment where technology is evolving at an ever-increasing pace, with instant gratification being the #1 priority. That mainstay of the primitive id, the pleasure principle, is being fed like never before. With the internet and social media now quick at hand, we no longer have to worry about being bored. With artificial intelligence at the ready, we seem to have less need for things like critical thinking or creativity. Our hearts and minds are weakening, our sense of purpose dwindling. Yet we're quite content to just let it happen. It's precisely the kind of crisis that good SF and monster narratives have always warned us against. When I started this channel, it was with the aim of filling a void. Platforms such as YouTube are overflowing with content that is nominally relevant to the interests of people like myself, yet far too much of it is lowbrow and often low effort, rife with shallow talking points, sensationalism, and empty noise. Like Adler and Block, I sought to create something different from the usual fare. In a climate polluted with condescending clickbait and AI-generated swill, the aim of Monsters from the Id is to share my love for the weird and the monstrous in what I hope is a thoughtful and intelligent way. A great deal of consideration and effort goes into what you see here, and whether or not these are the finest videos you've ever seen, they do represent a sincere wish to treat the material and the audience with the respect that they are due, and Forbidden Planet helped provide that impetus. The notion of Morbius and his monster from the id is a perfect illustration of the human frailties from which monsters are born. inspiring the channel's name as well as its very first video. It is, in effect, the foundational thesis of the channel itself. As you can see, I owe a lot to Forbidden Planet, and I'm far from the only one. Without it, the face of science fiction, not to mention the broader media landscape that genre has helped to shape, would look quite different. Thus, this cinematic milestone, which has influenced generations of filmmakers, filmgoers, and creators, continues to inspire. In a time when sci-fi film was considered risky and uncultured, a group of determined artists dared to push the envelope and explore the possibilities of a good idea. It's an example we would do well to follow, to reach for something greater and exercise discernment in what we create and what we consume, lest we be consumed by the monsters in us all. As we celebrate 70 years of Forbidden Planet, let us reflect on its legacy with a little challenge. Without using the internet or machine intelligence, comment where, in film, media, or your own life, you have detected the influence of this sci-fi classic. And if you haven't seen it, maybe you should start there. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe, and consider becoming a channel member for more Monsters from the Id. As always, thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.